Do you use AI in your writing? How much is the right amount to use, and is the creative process at risk? I'm Kendall, and this is Plot to Print, and we'll talk a little bit about using AI in our writing during the creative process, if we should be using it at all, and if that's a good or bad thing. I'll get right into it. With the proliferation of conveniences on the internet, it's made us lazier than ever. For instance, if I want takeout and I don't necessarily want to drive and get it, I can just order DoorDash. The same goes for if I, need to do some research and I want to not have to comb through, a bunch of articles. I can either consult Wikipedia or I can consult its most recent rival, ChatGPT. And is that necessarily a bad thing? After all, if I don't feel like cooking or I'm not interested in cooking and don't like cooking, why shouldn't I use a service like DoorDash? And also, I'm familiar with the concept of time is money more than anyone. I think if you're here, you're probably also a fellow writer or a creative person. And speaking as a self-published author myself, I know how many different hats we're wearing. And that's not even going into our personal lives. Just as an author myself, I understand that we have to be, marketer, social media guru, we have to be a graphic designer, and we also have to craft a story at the same time. That's not even going into any of my other responsibilities. So our time is definitely already strapped. My main concern is for the creative process itself. Let's say, for instance, I really like and enjoy piano sonatas, but maybe I necessarily don't want to create them. I have no interest in, learning to play the piano. I don't want to take up the skills that it would require for me to get an ear for music, for me to train my hands and my fingers, for me to learn music, and for me to kind of, create the hardwiring in my brain it would take to start to play the piano. The opposite, however, can be said for writing. Since I want to be a good writer, I had to hone the necessary skill to be good at it. And I wasn't always good at it. In fact, when I started, I was probably pretty bad at it. I wrote clunky sentences, I had run-on dialogue, I used too many adjectives, I had plots that went nowhere, and all sorts of gripes that we may have about our fiction at any point in time. The point is, I wasn't good at it, and it was a skill that I had to hone. Now, I know how infuriating it can be to get stuck in your story, and maybe doing it the hard way wasn't always, the best experience. If I, after all, could have bounced my ideas off of ChatGPT, maybe I could have saved myself hours of pain by being able to do that. But when I started writing, basically, ChatGPT did not exist yet, or AI tools didn't exist yet. So I kind of had to just dig in and figure it out myself. But if I hadn't done that, I also wouldn't have created the necessary pathways in my brain that help me, kind of create a story from, beginning to end. And I'm certainly not a neuroscientist, but I know with the acquisition of any skill, you end up creating some plasticity in your brain and kind of linking things together and lighting up some synapses you probably didn't light up before. So in doing this way, sort of taking the long way, we also are becoming skilled tradesmen of our craft. In this case, writing. Let's return to the fact that I used to be bad. And because I didn't want to be bad at writing anymore, I had to study writers and books who were actually good. I had to study their plot points, how they wrote their dialogue, how they weaved their story together, how they styled their language. I had to kind of put in all that time and study these authors and books that were better, than the stage I was in now, to kind of continue to become a better writer. Now, let's say I just studied ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is a model that basically has data thrown at it, good or bad data, and it's there to kind of regurgitate that data back into satisfactory results, the best of its kind of subjective knowledge. It only really knows the data that's been thrown at it. So let's think on the terms if I was an artist and I wanted to get better at art, painting, for instance. If I studied the art that was spit out by AI models, which is very easy to identify, it's usually, got kind of like a weird yellow tinge to it, and it sort of has a particular style. Let's just say I studied that instead of looking at Rembrandt. Even though the AI model was probably trained with real art created by real people, it doesn't necessarily mean that the results it's turning out for me to study are any good. Once more, because it's been trained with specific data, I have no real way of knowing that the ideas that it's giving me, maybe I need help with the magic system, or I need help with a mentor character, or I need, any sort of plot point that it's giving me. I have no real way to know that it's not just giving me things that it's also giving to someone else who may be asking that. It's really working with a certain subset of data, and I don't know if what it's giving to me is really going to be all that unique. Now, we already are at a point where authors are using AI models to help with their novels. We have published authors who are admitting that they've used AI to write some of their books. So I think we're kind of at a point where we're sort of at like an AI nuclear arms race as to whether we want to use AI, how it can help us with our work, and what constitutes real art at this point. In this case, writing, how much of it can be helped and assisted by AI and still be considered art. And I think that's definitely a debate that's going to continue for some time. And obviously, opinions are going to shift and vary as time goes by too. Like anything else using AI, there's obviously an ethical dilemma involved. After all, other authors are using it, so why shouldn't you? The old adage is work smarter, not harder, right? And you sort of need to ask yourself, is using AI shortcuts actually the smarter way? And I think that really depends on the goal you have for your writing. Can you write a, decent, marketable, and well thought out book with the help of AI? Probably. Will you have learned anything along the way? Maybe. Did your creative prowess and did you sharpen your craft along the way? Did your synaptive processes gain anything? That kind of remains to be seen. And is the implementation of AI models into any type of art, be it painting or drawing or writing, good in the first place? Is art meant to be a solely human endeavor, or can we use AI to help us with the creative process? And should we? My advice would probably be to use AI and leave AI for things that it's somewhat good at. The administrative tasks like organization, scheduling, creating lists of character names, creating, a list of titles that you can then maybe cobble together a good title from. And I would probably leave it alone for any of the creative process, or use it at least in a very, very limited capacity. Because the true genius of storytelling is probably something that you want to keep your mind sharp for. Because after all, while you were consulting ChatGPT, I was studying the blade. So what do you think? Are you using AI in your work in any way? Do you think it's good or bad? Feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, you can like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, bye.